Deputy Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis and Minister of Education, Mr. Vincent Hodge, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, other specially invited guests, judges, auditors of Lands More Nation Associates, Mrs. Fifield and Mr. Jeffers, teachers, parents, debating team members, and supporters, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good afternoon. Good afternoon. And welcome to the first ever Advocates of Tomorrow National High School Debating Competition. The St. Kitts and Nevis Bar Association is very excited to be hosting this competition as one of our series of events for Law Week 2018. My name is Taliba Byron and I am a member of the Bar Council and the coordinator of Law Week 2018. And I will also be moderating today's proceedings. The Law Week Committee of the Bar Association extended invitations to all high schools across St. Kitts and Nevis, and we are so grateful for the schools that answered our call ultimately and decided to participate despite all of the challenges involved and despite being very busy with other things themselves. We think that debating is an excellent means of strengthening advocacy skills and presentation skills, and it also helps to improve students' self-confidence, and it helps with their poise, and it also helps to hone their research skills and helps them to learn about current affairs, right? So we think that this competition as well, we know that a lot of students have to juggle a lot of responsibilities in order to participate today. I know some of you have SBAs, some people have music, piano exams this week and next week, which requires a lot of focus. And so we want to say thank you to everyone, okay, for participating. We believe that ultimately you will emerge extremely well-rounded, and we think that this will help you in whatever field you choose to go into, whether it is law, whether it is accounting, whatever other field. We think that this will strengthen you, and the experience that you gain here will take you very far. Okay, so our debating competition will take place over 2 days. It begins today, and then it will continue on Wednesday of this week, the 31st of October. So the competition will have 2 rounds. The first round will be starting very shortly. In debate number 1, we have the Verchiles High School competing against the Immaculate Conception Catholic School. Okay, and their moot will be the education system is not doing enough to combat crime in our society. And then in debate number 2 today, we will have the Washington Archibald High School competing against the Bastyr High School. And their topic will be, all beaches in St. Kitts and Nevis should remain public. So that the winner of debate number 1 and the winner of debate number 2 will go on to compete in the final round on Wednesday. And their topic will be, children below the age of 16 years should be banned from using social media. So we are very excited to see the students shine. They have been preparing very hard for weeks, and I am sure they will do well today. I now call on the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, the Honorable Sean Richards, to deliver brief remarks.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Mr. William Hodge, Solicitor General, Mrs. Simone Bullen, principals, members of the Bar Association, teachers, judges, students, well-wishers, media personnel, good afternoon to all. There is and has always been much discussion as to what should be the topic of the great debate. Religion, some argue, as it is the foundation of our values and principles. Social issues, others argue, for they define our quality of life. Law, as it promotes equality for all, and of course, the ever-prevalent politics. Each platform postures its importance over every other platform, purporting to be the key to the amelioration of our nation's problems. Please allow me, therefore, to further muddy the water, for I will offer you this afternoon that the purpose of debate is debate. A society where people discuss and argue is one in which guns, knives, and violence have no place. We have been witness to and victims of a downward spiral of our moral fiber in our society, and it starts with us failing in our ability to articulate our points of view. Our embarrassments end up in a bottle, in a spliff, and being sniffed up our noses, rather than in the ears of loved ones. Our disagreements end in violence instead of a respectful handshake, and our anger ends in weapons rather than words. The lack of ability to communicate and verbally share views and argue has descended us to use only the tools of violence and disrespect. Can you imagine a society where all differences are hashed out by individuals squaring off in debate? Imagine a society where we arm ourselves with knowledge, where we constantly spar and jab with facts and defend with deflections. Can you imagine a society where we listen first, think next, and speak last? When we imagine this, we imagine a better society. I congratulate the St. Kitts Nevis Bar Association on this initiative, as it empowers our students to be better citizens and better people. It is the goal of this project to strengthen advocacy and research skills, boost self-confidence, develop good sportsmanship, and broaden knowledge of current affairs. It is my wish that I see all of these traits and qualities coming out during the course of this competition, as these students become our advocates for tomorrow. Thank you again to the Bar Association, to the teachers who are so often called upon in the preparation of these students. As always, our gratitude, and of course to the students. Always remember the words of Bishop Desmond Tutu: don't raise your voice, improve your arguments. May you grow from participating in this competition, and indeed, may the best team win. Thank you.
Straight into debate number 1, I will repeat the moot. The education system is not doing enough to combat crime in our society. There will be 2 speakers from each team. The proposition, the team arguing in favor of the motion, will go first, and the leader of the proposition will speak for a maximum of 7 minutes. The seconder of the proposition will speak for a maximum of 4 minutes. The opposition, which is the team arguing against the motion, will go second, and the leader of the opposition will speak for a maximum of 7 minutes. Then the seconder of the opposition will speak for a maximum of 4 minutes. And my trusty timekeeper, Mr. Kenyatta Tyson, will give me a signal when the time is running out. And then when the allotted time has completely run out, he will give another signal. And the debater, who may still be on his or her feet, will be given a 10-second window to wrap up his or her presentation. After this period, I will have to ask the debater to take his or her seat. After the main presentations, the debaters will then get a short break to prepare their rebuttal, and then each team will deliver their rebuttal in a maximum of 2 minutes. I'm going to have the students come on stage now and take their seats. Miss Jackie Peets. Yes. Could we give her a hand, please?
Bruce Warner said it best. For every challenge we face, unemployment, poverty, or crime, a great education is a major component of the solution. Oddly enough, in our context, the education system is not doing enough to combat crime in our society. The empirical record is littered with support for this stance. I point to the three most pertinent pieces of data. Firstly, the failure of the education system to properly cater to all students feeds into the criminal population. Also, there abounds gross inconsistency in school counseling methods. We will also point to the reality that the education system is not doing enough with regards to diversification of schooling and teacher suitability. My colleague and I will point to you the vast chasm of room for improvement that lay at the feet of the education department. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Martin Luther King Jr. Allow me to define the key terms of our discussion. Merriam-Webster defines enough as occurring in such quantity, quality, or scope as to fully meet demands, needs, or expectations. According to dictionary.com, crime is an action or instance of negligence that is deemed injurious to the public welfare and that is legally prohibited. The same source has the term society to refer to as a condition of those living as a community. The education system, for the purposes of this debate, as defined by the Glossary of Education Reform, is a public school district which serves children ages 5 to 16. We are therefore maintaining that our primary and secondary schools are not fully meeting the demands, needs, or expectations suitable for the condition of those living as a community in St. Kitts Nevis to combat actions or instances of negligence that are deemed injurious to the public welfare and that are legally prohibited. Moderator, having declared our position, I will expound on our first 2 points, while my colleague will elaborate on the third and close. Greg Boyle has surveyed the landscape, and we agree. He posits that you combat teen crime by offering after-school programs, sports, mentoring, and positive engagement with adults. Is this the thrust of the education system? We know what works. It is high time that we re-evaluate and mobilize. This is our position here today. We are not doing enough. The failure of the education system to properly cater to all students consequently feeds into the criminal population. This is an issue that must be addressed. The current education system fails to properly cater to students of varying degrees of academia, thus leaving many understimulated and without sufficient skills to gainfully and meaningfully participate in society. Inadvertently, these individuals whom the system fails to cater to are the ones who typically turn to crime. Moderator, international statistics support this claim. In 1997, 75% of state prisoners in the US did not have a high school diploma. In 2001, more than 75% of convicted in persons in Italy had not completed high school. This trend is in keeping with what we see locally. The data points to a link between poor academic performance and crime. While in prison, many inmates turn to education as reform. Perhaps if they had been successful at academia while in the education system, they could have avoided prison. In 2018 alone, 4 inmates received associate degrees and 100% pass rate at Cape level. Moderator, this demonstrates that these individuals can absorb when catered to. We can take a step further and link increased criminal activity to school dropout rates. What we notice is that there is a disparity between the number of students who enter high school in Form 1 to those exiting in the graduating cohort. Analysis reveals that those students not making it to graduation are largely those students who occupy the lower streams and who end up as delinquents. Here we see again a link between low academic performance and crime. Hezron Wade's research aligns with our stance. His research reveals that 10 to 19-year-old youths commit 20% of homicides in St. Kitts. This is evidence that something is wrong. Somewhere we are failing. What is being done to gainfully occupy these students while in the education system? What efficiency measures are in place to monitor and tweak such programs? How effective are the methods that are in place to keep these at-risk students in school? Moderator, the education sector must do better. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults. We cannot continue to collect data on students who are failing within our schools and do no remediation or proactive intervention. Analysis of school suspension rates also further support the notion that we are failing at-risk students. In 2017 alone, more than 30 boys were suspended from high schools in the Bastia area. Suspension provides the recruitment grounds for gang membership. Are we blind, deaf, and dumb? We are the ones placing our boys in danger. The education system is not doing enough to combat crime in our society. The Ministry of Education fails time and time again to properly and adequately address the inconsistencies within counseling departments in our schools. Counselors are more involved in school fundraisers and event planning, while the counseling role is being neglected. Also, there is barely any evidence of psychological and cognitive testing of at-risk teens at different stages of their development. Perhaps this is due to the lack of enough counselors. Currently, the ratio of counselors to students is approximately 175 to 1. This is astronomically ridiculous. Also, within the ministry, there exists no budget designated to the important role of counseling. Counselors must 1. Host remediation programs during vacation period, 2. Address the limited spiritual instruction at school, which is where children spend most of their time, 3. Spearhead campaigns geared towards the negative impact of labeling of children from specific communities. Counseling is that instrument within schools that is designed to intercept and redirect diabolical intentions. Clearly, the ministry is not doing enough to realize this goal. Enough is not being done. I rest.
Okay, so we have the leader of the opposition, Miss Naomi Francis, yes?
The integration of crime prevention and criminal justice into all levels of education is essential in building long-lasting approaches to countering crime and violence. This was reported as summing up the 7th declaration made by member states at the 13th United Nations Congress on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice. By this declaration, members emphasized, and I quote, education for all children and youth, including the eradication of illiteracy, is fundamental to the prevention of crime and corruptions and to the promotion of a culture of lawfulness that supports the rule of law and human rights. End quote. It is against this backdrop that my teammates and I stand firmly to oppose the move. The education system is not doing enough to combat crime in our society. Madam Moderator, distinguished judges, worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Permit me to define the keywords and phrases that define the parameter of our argument. According to Collins' English Dictionary, education means the process of applying knowledge by systematic instruction, while system is defined as a regularly interacting group of items forming a unified whole. This process of acquiring knowledge is directed by 2 interacting bodies. 1, the Ministry of Education, which provides laws and regulations for education, and 2, our schools that implement them. These bodies work together to form the united whole that is known as our education system. Enough is defined as that which is sufficient. Combat means to try to stop something unpleasant or harmful from happening, while crime is defined as any illegal act that someone can be punished for by the government. Paraphrase, the moot reads thus: the Ministry of Education and schools are not sufficiently trying to stop the increase of illegal acts in our society. It is a fact that crime is on a rise today. However, we, like the members at the 13th UN Congress on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, firmly believe that the education system is fundamental to crime prevention and promoting a culture of lawfulness. My teammates and I will demonstrate that 1, the increase in crime today is not attributed to young people, and 2, Despite this, the education system is tirelessly implementing crime preventative measures for students and the community at large. Firstly, we must dispel any notion that the rising crime in the Federation is attributed to youth. According to the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force comparative statistics on the distribution and detection of crimes for 2018, there have been 1,328 crimes committed. Out of this, only 13 were committed by juveniles. This is a mere 3% of the total crime committed for this year. Further, the statistics for 2017 also show that only a small percentage of crime is actually committed by youth. Out of the 1,711 crimes detected, only 22 were committed by juveniles. We must remember that the education system reach is limited to young people, and based on these statistics, young people are not the primary cause for the rising crime in our federation. The education system, however, is sufficiently trying to combat crime committed by this 3% through the preventative measures it employs. Studies show students who attain an education are more likely to positively contribute to the fabric of society than be involved in criminal behavior. Lochner and Moretti 2004 in their paper, The Effect of Education on Crime, Evidence from Prison Inmates, Arrest and Self-Reports conclude that the role of education as a human capital investment that increases future legitimate work opportunities discourages participation in crime. Investment in human capital and schooling should reduce crime. Simply put, policies that increase schooling should reduce most types of crime among adults. With this in mind, the education system has employed its first preventative measure in combating crime. That is the provision of education for all. The education system provides equal opportunities for each child to attain subject passes, which will equip them with the know-how to gain employment and contribute to society. However, we have seen that most delinquency among young people in our federation is usually committed by school dropouts. The education system, in realizing this and understanding that educational achievement is essential to the benefiting of an individual, has mandated in its new education sector plan that all students must go up to fifth form, thus ensuring they attain subject passes to enable them to function in society. The education system is working to ensure that every child is marketable and can gain employment, thus preventing the increase in crime. We must bear in mind that the propensity of an individual to commit crime is not only reduced through the attainment of subject passes, but through the conditioning of the mind to a culture of lawfulness. The education system provides students with knowledge about the consequences of their behavior and psychosocial skills such as self-control. The education system, in its efforts to combat crime, has partnered with international organizations such as USAID, UNESCO, and UNICEF to help change the school culture in St. Kitts and Nevis by employing programs that help improve students' behavior and self-worth. We are all familiar with the saying, idle hands are the devil's workshop. This is true, as children who are not involved in extracurricular activities are more prone to mischief and getting involved in criminal activities. As such, the education system has facilitated after-school programs such as sports clubs, clubs, and cadets to keep children occupied in meaningful activity and sway them from crime. The education system, recognizing the need to address crime, has sought the efforts of Dr. Neil Triton, an international social skills consultant and crime reduction specialist, who over the past year has worked with students to reduce the risk of high school dropout, failure, and high school frustration by equipping them with the strategies, concepts, inspiration, and focus needed to develop career goals and think before they act. Dr. Triton has also worked with all schools in our federation to develop a plan to assist them in identifying at-risk youth and reduce crime. With all of this identification of at-risk youth, provision of education for all, reconditioning of behavioral culture, and after-school programs, how can my opponents argue that the education system is not doing enough? Thank you.
Nelson Mandela profoundly posited, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. My colleague has adequately shown how the education system fails to cater to our students and that there abounds gross inconsistency in school counseling methods. I will now point to the reality that the education sector is not doing enough with regards to diversification of schooling and monitoring teacher suitability for the job. Moderator, given the data already presented, one would hope that the education sector would invest in serious intervention and simply do more. Lochner notes that policies that increase schooling or the efficiency of schooling should reduce most types of street crime among adults. Thus, we seriously recommend the diversification of schooling from a policy standpoint at all levels. There are 25 primary and 9 public secondary schools in St. Kitts and Nevis, all catering primarily to academia. Where are the technical schools? Where is a diversification of offerings? ABEC shines as the only advanced vocational institution geared to target adult continued learning. Another issue with the ministry policy is the substandard quality of teachers. Moderator, the ministry recognizes that substandard teachers cannot be a part of the way forward. But we ask, what happens to teachers who are not professionalized? Who accounts for their footprint? We maintain that the teaching profession must be reserved for the committed. It is widely known that certification does not always transfer to effectiveness. How does the ministry measure subject knowledge as a teacher qualification measurement? Some teachers teach subjects they have never studied, while others have no passion for teaching. The theme for this year's Teachers Week was, the right to an education means the right to a qualified teacher. We maintain that in St. Kitts and Nevis, this has not always been the case. The permanent secretary in education himself has been disturbed by the Public Service Commission's decision to continually redeploy teachers who have engaged in criminal activities themselves. Is a weed-selling gangster teacher still qualified to inspire our nation's children? Monkey see, monkey do. We also see a need for policy regarding the low pass rate in mathematics. Mathematics is the foundation for reasoning. Over the past 5 years, the Federation has failed to attain even a 50% pass rate in mathematics. We also see a need for policy regarding the opposition will try to sway you by putting forward the milestones achieved by the Education Department. These are not instances that we deny. We maintain that enough has not been done to truly make a difference. Do not be swayed. Search yourself and reflect upon your communities and join us in responding to the mood. Enough is not being done. In closing, we reiterate, the education system is not doing enough to combat crime in our society. The education system fails to properly cater to our students, consequently feeding into the criminal population. The gross inconsistency within schools regarding counseling methods compounds an already difficult adolescent period. And the education system is not doing enough with regards to diversification of schooling and monitoring teacher suitability for the job. Moderator, as the ministry responsible for the education of the nation, we must revamp our policies to encapsulate a more rigorous approach to crime and violence mitigation. I rest.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diaz. Our seconder of the opposition, Mr. Malachi Ferguson, will now come forward.
Madam Moderator, permit me to adopt the protocol previously established. I begin with the adage, prevention is better than cure. Our opponents would have us believe that there is some fundamental flaw in the education system that is the cause of crime today, or that our schools fail to dissuade students from crime. The fight against crime is not just handled by our schools. Everyone, our government, police, schools, churches, and yes, even parents must take responsibility. My teammate mentioned that the education system has employed preventative measures to combat crime. I'll briefly highlight some of these measures to show that the education system is doing enough. Firstly, stop and think campaigns developed by the Ministry of Education